Please be very cautious if you've been told to avoid stretching your hip flexors because it can make your back pain worse. But also, if you've been told early on in your back pain recovery to stretch your hip flexors, I'd advise caution once again. As a physical therapist, I can tell you that stretching your hip flexors can make your back pain worse. But if you sit a lot or sit all day for work, it's also true they're probably shortened, and that increases strain on your low back. So what do we do? Sadly, it's not so cut and dry, but if we're serious about getting out of and staying out of back pain, then we do have to come to know the psoas muscle and how to properly address it. This glorious muscle, the psoas, is like the soul of the body. It directs everything that happens and is really important. This is the only muscle that connects the leg directly to the spine. And there's a right and a left, so symmetry here matters. Most people know the psoas as a hip flexor attaching at the top of the thigh bone. You can see how it would pull the hip up. But look at its other attachments. It attaches directly into the front and sides of every lumbar vertebrae, into L5, L4, L3, L2, L1, even T12. So it actually has a very important relationship with the lumbar spine. Because of this, it's not just a hip flexor, it's actually a lumbar or low back stabilizer. So here's the thing. When the spine senses instability or has an injury, disc bulges, arthritis, poor movement patterns, or weakness, it shifts into protective strategy. It will always choose stability over mobility. So often the deep stabilizers are shut down, transversus abdominis, the multifidus, pelvic floor. And then the body recruits larger global muscles to help protect the spine. It recruits the psoas, as well as the big back erector spinae muscles and rectus abdominis. This means psoas increases its tone to splint and protect the lumbar spine. Add to this sitting most of the time, which shortens psoas, and now we have an overactive and tight psoas in a lumbar spine on lockdown. Holy crap. But tight or not, that psoas may be guarding, protecting an unstable spine. So if you stretch the psoas before the spine is stable, that's the key, then you may create more instability and more spasms. So yes, aggressive stretching early in recovery can sometimes make symptoms worse. And it's also why people say it doesn't matter how much they stretch their hip flexors, they always tighten up again. Well, yeah, one, they're neurologically being called in the game to constantly protect, and so they'll feel tight. And two, if you sit most of the time, then they actually are put in a shortened position and are tight. But that's not all. Because of neurology, when the hip flexors are on a constant state of alert, short and tight, they inhibit and shut off their opposition, the glutes. Well, crud. The glutes, the buttocks muscles, are needed to stand, squat, walk, run, manage our movement, and protect our spine doing so. And now they're shut off because the soul, psoas, makes it so. So no wonder our lumbar spine has problems. Not to mention we have a right and a left psoas, so if one side becomes more dominant or protective than the other, it can subtly pull the low back into side bending or rotation, increasing more strain on discs and joints. That's one reason chronic back pain often feels worse on one side. And that's why in my programs, DIY PT program, we absolutely address the psoas, but not until the end of stage 2 and in stage 3. And we first focused on restoring the deep core function so that psoas no longer needs to guard so strongly. Now we can safely begin restoring normal hip extension, ideal psoas length, and glute strength. And this is why form really matters too. Instead of passive stretching, DIY PT program uses controlled eccentric lengthening. This means we'll gradually lengthen psoas while the spine stays stable and protected. And these movements mimic how the body naturally lengthens the psoas during walking. This approach helps restore balance between the right and left sides, protects the low back. So as we move into these exercises, we will be focusing on maintaining deep core engagement, allowing the hip to open behind us while the spine stays stable and supported. Okay, let's go do this.